Everyone to the East Gippsland Shire Council's meeting of Tuesday the 19th of March 2024. East Gippsland Shire Council live streams, records and publishes its meetings via webcasting. These recordings are available for viewing by the public by following the link on Council's website. During the meeting, any member of the public who is addressing the Council will have their image recorded and their comments also. No other person has the right to record Council meetings unless approval has been granted by the Chair, and I have received no such requests. In line with the Local Government Act 2020, councillors are able to attend council meetings electronically or in person, and the meeting will be open to the public via live streaming. If technical difficulties are experienced with the live streaming during the meeting, we will adjourn until the issue is resolved. If the technical issues can't be resolved, the meeting may be postponed to a later time or date. East Gippsland Shire recognises the Gunai Kurnai, Monero and Bidwell people as the traditional owners of the land that encompasses East Gippsland and their enduring relationship with country. The traditional owners have cared and nurtured for East Gippsland for tens of thousands of years. Council value their living culture and practices and their right to self-determination. Council pays respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people living in East Gippsland, their elders, past, present and future. I'd also just like to acknowledge the presence of former Mayor Tom Courtney here tonight too. Welcome, Tom. A member's attendance can only be recorded as present at a council meeting when the member can confirm that they meet all the following criteria. Firstly, that they can hear proceedings and be heard by other members in attendance, and secondly, that they can see members in attendance and can be seen by other members. I'll now confirm with each councillor attending online in turn that they can see, hear and be heard by each other, and to note assurance from each that their location is secure and to ensure that confidential deliberations remain confidential. Councillor Buckley, can you see and hear us?
Yes, Mayor, I can.
Thank you and welcome. And can you assure us that the location you're participating from this evening is secure?
Indeed it is.
Thank you. Councillor White, can you see and hear us?
Yes, I can, thank you.
And is your location secure?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much. If a councillor participating electronically experiences difficulties during the meeting, we may adjourn briefly to enable the councillor to rejoin the meeting. Should the councillor be unable to reconnect within 5 minutes, the meeting shall resume in the councillor's absence. Agenda item 1.2 is apologies. I don't believe there are any apologies apart from Councillor Mark Reeve.
That's the only apology we have, Mayor.
Thank you. Declarations of conflicts of interest. Staff and councillors. Councillor Uri.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to declare a conflict of interest in item 5.1.1. I have a material conflict of interest as I live next door, bar one, to the property in question. That is the subject of that planning application, and the outcome of the decision may or may be perceived to have an impact on the amenity and or the value of our property. If there are any, I believe there's some questions to be asked regarding that item as well, and if that is the case, I'll excuse myself from those questions as well.
Understood. Thanks, Councillor Uri. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Mayor. I also have a perceived conflict of interest for item 5.1.1. Both Tom Courtney and Megan Jackson are very dear lifelong friends of mine, and they are adjacent to the said property. So I will excuse myself at that time.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Sarah.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to declare a conflict of interest to items 5.2.2 and 5.2.3 due to a family association with the potential contractors as part of that.
Thank you. Councillors, I see no further conflicts, in which case we'll move to agenda item 1.4, which is confirmation of the minutes. Councillors, can I have a mover to confirm that the minutes of our previous meeting are an accurate record of that meeting? Thank you, Councillor Uri. Seconded, Councillor Stowe. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Is the motion opposed? I'll then put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Next meeting of council will be scheduled for Tuesday, 27th? Sorry, the 9th of April 2024 at the Corporate Centre at 273 Main Street, Bairnsdale, commencing at 6 p.m. Thank you for the assistance there. 1.6, requests for leaves of absence. CEO, have we had any?
No, Mayor, we've had no request for leaves of absence.
Thank you. Brings us to agenda item number 1.7, which is our open forum. We'll now move to the open forum, and the first part of that is agenda item 1.7.1, which is petitions. Council has received a petition in relation to a matter tonight. General Manager for Business Excellence, Sarah, if you could please take us to that matter.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report titled Urgent Upgrade to Chillers Road, Wyong, which is a petition submitted by Miss Kaylee Eadie of Wyong seeking an upgrade to Chillers Road, Wyong. The petition was received on hard copy on the 28th of February and states, "We, the residents and farming families of Chillers Road in Wyong, wish to petition East Gippsland Shire for an urgent upgrade of our road." The petition has been received and presented in accordance with Governance Rule 8.7 and includes 16 signatures, all of which meet the governance requirements. The officer recommendation is for Council to receive the petition and to refer the petition to the Acting General Manager of Assets and Environment for consideration and written response. The Acting CEO will arrange for Council officers to write to the head petitioner advising them of these actions.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Buckley.
Yes, I just have a question for the acting CEO. Is this particular item, would it be a contender for the roads to recovery funding?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor. This road, I believe we're looking at maintenance funding for an upgrade, which would probably come out of our maintenance budget. If we require a major upgrade, we could certainly look at funding that from the Roads to Recovery funding, which is a federal allocation for just those purposes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. CEO. Councillors, are there any further questions of clarification of officers? No? Councillors, there is a recommendation in the report. I have a mover. Thank you, Councillor Allen. A seconder, Councillor Buckley. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Councillor Allen, Councillor Buckley.
Yes, just briefly to say that it's really good that community are petitioning council to make moves and getting engaged with the process, and it's such an important part of our job as councillors to ensure that we have safe roads and that our roads are going to start, coming into better shape and us making the right decisions at the right time. So I thank the community for their petition.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? In which case I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Moves us on to agenda item 1.7.2, which is questions of council. I understand there are questions tonight. Acting CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. We've got a range of questions tonight, some that have people are not in the room and some from those that are in the room. What I'll do is I will read out the ones that have come from people who are not in the room first and refer them to the officers. And then we'll invite those that have questions that are in the room to come forward and ask their question.
Happy
so we
to
have
do that.
Two questions from Dean Hurlson on behalf of Council Watch. And I'll read them both and then I'll refer them to the Acting General Manager of Assets and Environment. Question 1 is, what amount of waste enforcement cost in the current financial year, 2023-24, has the Council included in its waste levy charges to residents, and in brackets, if any? And question 2, what amount of revenue has Council included in the current financial year, 2023-24, from waste enforcement actions? Mr. Richards.
Thank you for the question, Acting CEO. With that one, I'll need to take that one on notice to give time to gather that information, but we'll be happy to respond in writing with the information requested. Thank you.
Thank you. Our second lot of questions are the third question is from Mr Chris Wispler, and I apologise if I...
Sorry, Councillor Buckley, do you have a question in relation to the last question or the current?
The last question, just a question of clarification. CEO, acting CEO, how long when the questions come in to you, do you normally allow some time for officers to have a response? Because in this particular instance, there's been no response or information given to the councillors in regards to the questions asked, and I know that we will receive some information into the future, but perhaps that won't come into the public domain, such as around the council chambers, or will that be brought back to the next meeting?
Thank you, Councillor Buckley, and through you, Mayor. The questions can come in any time up until 4 p.m. The afternoon of the council meeting. We regularly find that the questions come in quite late. This one came in today. The manager in this particular area was unavailable to provide that information. So we will gather that information rather than Mr Richards make it up on the run or give estimates. We'll make sure we have a really clear response, and that is included in the minutes of the council meeting, as well as being provided to the question asker as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mayor, our next question comes from Mr Chris Wispler. Could the bike walking trail link near Eastwood Road, near Club Eastwood, to Eastwood near Flynn's Road, please be fixed? It's a useful, enjoyable trail to walk or ride. However, parts of it are routinely submerged by any sort of rainfall and remain impassable for weeks on end. If a couple of short stretches were elevated, even with wooden planks, the trail would be usable all year round. And I will refer that question to Mr Richards, our Acting Manager of Assets and Environment, for a response. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So I agree, it's been a challenging year for maintaining trails with multiple rain and storm events this year. I can say that while maintenance and repairs will occur, at the moment capital upgrades of this trail are not currently scheduled. But I'm also able to advise that a condition inspection will be conducted and options to resolve any significant drainage issues will be reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Richards. That's it for the external questions
That is
for this evening. Thank you.
We now have some people in our gallery who would like to go and ask questions. We have Tom Courtney, Mr Tom Courtney, who's got 2 questions to answer. These questions have been refined, and I just ask Mr Courtney to ask the questions that he's already submitted. And, if you'd like to come forward, Miss.
No, I haven't got them with me because I think that the Mayor could read them out.
My apologies.
If there are any questions.
Okay.
It's not a matter for debate, unfortunately.
In that instance then, Mayor, I'm happy to read the questions out.
If you'd like to, by all means.
The first question is, what plans does Council have to supervise, control and enforce breaches as to when they occur? And this is in relation to the planning matter that is before Council for consideration this evening on Mathiesons Road. I'll refer this question to Mr McConnell, who is our General Manager, Place and Community. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. It's a good question. It's a question that is relevant to quite a number of different planning applications, particularly where there's potential for amenity and other impacts. So Council will investigate any alleged breaches of the planning scheme, and we do take action as appropriate to ensure that compliance with the relevant planning requirements is obtained. But I would note, we are also then relying on and welcoming the information that comes from community where there are concerns about compliance with those requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr McConnell. And the second question, Mayor, is also relating to the same item before Council this evening. In relation to traffic into and along Mathiesons Road, which does not meet Council's own standards for a rural access road, who commissioned and paid for the private traffic study, and why is there limited or no reference to the traffic impact on residents' vehicles and the amenity of the area? And again, I will refer this question to Mr McConnell to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, the traffic impact assessment was commissioned by the applicant as is the normal practice with planning applications, and in this case, it was undertaken by Quantum Traffic. The assessment concludes that the road has sufficient capacity to accommodate the traffic from both the development and the other properties along Mathiesons Road, and that there's a low likelihood of vehicle conflict with the existing residential traffic. So that's what the conclusion of that report was. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr McConnell. And Mayor, our final questions are from Ms Megan Jackson, who's also in the gallery tonight. I'll just confirm, would you like me to read those questions out? Thank you.
Thanks.
So there are 2 questions, and again, they are relating to the planning matter before Council this evening. What do the planners mean when they state that the applicants will use their best endeavours to move people from the property at closing time? And again, I'll refer this question to Mr McConnell, our General Manager of Place.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So the applicant has committed to this requirement to use best endeavours to move people from the property at closing time as part of their business management plan. So the business management plan is referenced in the proposed conditions of the approval, if that is what Council decides tonight, and therefore will be enforceable. The business management plan is intended to set out a range of matters around how the operations will occur and is one of the ways in which potential issues associated with amenity and the like can be managed. So as I said, it is proposed to be reflected in the conditions approval and therefore enforceable. And so if there are problems that arise from delays in people leaving the site, that's something that can be picked up from a compliance perspective and raised with the operators and action taken to rectify.
Thank you, Mr McConnell. And Mayor, our final question this evening is the second question from Ms Jackson. Given the impact on the amenity of the area, how does Council plan to supervise the activities, many of which will be outside of normal Council working hours? And again, I'll refer this question to Mr McConnell to answer. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, and through you, Mayor. And this is similar to the response I provided earlier in relation to compliance with some of those matters related to amenities. So again, Council is, understandably, I think, is not in a position to closely supervise continuously all the use of land under various planning permits right across the Shire. It is one of the things in which we rely on the involvement of the public in reporting those concerns and allowing us the opportunity to assess the operations against the requirements of the planning scheme, and where there's an issue we do investigate and undertake appropriate enforcement action to rectify those breaches, and where necessary that does include targeted compliance activities that are outside normal operating hours and so on. So it's a good question, but it's also a question that is not uncommon when dealing with these sort of applications. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr McConnell. Councillor, is there any questions? No, I see none, in which case we'll move on. Thank you for your questions. Agenda item... Oh yes, we'll just bring those councillors who have declared conflicts back into the meeting. Welcome back, councillors. Agenda item 1.7.3 is public submissions, and I believe we do have a public submission this evening.
We do have a public submission, Mayor and councillors. We have from Mr Michael Klein, who's here with us in person, who's representing the National Festival Event Organising Committee for the Chevrolet Car Club of Victoria. And I'd ask Michael to come forward, and I'd ask our Manager of Governance to help him with his microphone. And he has up to 5 minutes.
Welcome, Michael. I'll give you a little wave when you're getting close to time if we get that far.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Put my eyes on. Honourable Lord Mayor, councillors and exec staff, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm representing the Gippsland chapter of the Victorian Chevrolet Car Club. All the Chevrolet car clubs around Australia hold a national event, and it's cycled around states. So this year it's Victoria's turn. Victoria hasn't held it for many years because COVID got in the way of the last attempt. And this year it's Victoria's turn. So we chose Lakes Entrance to hold this event. So just to paint a picture, all the cliches of big American cars, the chrome, the long bonnets, the fins, the noisy engines, the shiny paint. We're going to have 200 of those descending on Lakes Entrance for a period of 4 days. We'll have day trips going around visiting Meetung, Buchan Caves, various places like that. So we expect 400 to 800 people spending their money in town, and possibly spending money as they go back home, either through the coast or up through Melbourne. We're very passionate about Gippsland because we're the local chapter here we're based with a Melbourne club, but we're a local Gippsland chapter. We chose Lakes Entrance because of the local scenery, the nearby tourist attractions, the accommodation options, the retail food outlets, and what better than having 200 cars lined up in the main street of Lakes Entrance. But I don't have to sell Lakes Entrance to you because you know what its beauty is. As I say, we bring 400 cars to town, 800 tourists. On our estimates, we're bringing in excess of $400,000 into town that weekend. Many day trips planned, and we also like to thank the Shire for the use of the foreshore and the mechanics hall, which we've booked already. So the foreshore is going to be a magnificent site to showcase our cars. We also wish to humbly ask the Mayor or your delegate or someone from the Council to open our presentation dinner on the Sunday night. And that will give you a platform to spruik all the wonders of Gippsland to a wide audience of people from all over Australia. So what's in it for the Shire? We want the interstate and first-time visitors to go away with very fond memories of Gippsland and to visit again and to tell all their friends to come and visit. It cycles around, so every 4 years it'll come Victoria's turn in 4 years again. So if people go away with fond memories, it may well be hosted in Gippsland again. We won't be so crass to ask directly for money, although money is useful. But there may be other soft things that the Council could assist us with. So maybe drop a skip at the foreshore for the rubbish collection. Or maybe fund the St John's ambulance attendants on the day, so for public safety advocacy. We'd also possibly, if you could guide us how we could apply for a grant for this, because we're a not-for-profit organisation. So our success will inevitably lead to the Shire's success in promoting the area for tourism. We also hope to engage local media coverage to promote the event as well. So we humbly ask you for your assistance in promoting this event and possibly supporting us, because I think the benefits for Gippsland are going to be ongoing, because we're showcasing the area to the wider Australian car enthusiast community. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Sounds like a great initiative. Councillor Uri had a question.
It does sound fantastic. Could you just tell me the dates again, please, Michael?
The 4th and 7th of October. I've got some flyers here.
Terrific. And my question is around, I used to drive a car which was made by Chevrolet, but it didn't have fins and running boards and things. It was a Volt. It was a hybrid vehicle, the most fantastic car I've driven, I think. I hope you're going to have one of those in the display.
We may have. I believe GM canned that car after a couple of years. For some reason, they didn't think there was any future in it.
They stopped importing them. Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Good on you for the...
And could I ask you, do Chevy Silverados qualify? I might come myself.
Certainly, of course.
Councillor White, you have a question too.
Sort of. I'll get in trouble with governance. It's only 2 words. I would just like to say what a great idea to bring it to Gippsland, in particular to Lakes Entrance. A fantastic idea, and I hope you enjoy yourselves, and everybody else that comes from around Australia have a wonderful time.
Thanks, Councillor White. Councillors, any other questions or comments? Councillor Allen.
Just to back up what John said and to say that Lakes looks forward to it. It'll be fantastic.
Great.
Thank you very much, and I'll do my best to be there, and if not, we'll afford the opportunity to all the councillors. In the Silverado, I look forward to it. Councillor Buckley.
Yes, just in regards to the requests that we've just heard, is it possible for the officers to be able to just confirm that we're able to assist and perhaps obviously try to promote the events through the avenues that we have available?
Acting CEO.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Buckley. I'll refer this briefly to Mr McConnell, who is responsible as part of the portfolio of place and community for events, to provide a short response. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Certainly, I think what we'll do is, following this meeting, we'll reach out to you and just follow up in terms of what the opportunities are in terms of promotion and connecting with funding and other things. So it's a great initiative, and I just note also that already there's been some contact, as you've mentioned, in terms of the permitting for use of the foreshore and similar, which is, so there's been some assistance provided already, but let's follow up and see what else is possible.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. See you in October.
You will. Agenda item 1.8 is items for tabling. CEO, do we have any items for tabling this evening?
We have no items, Mayor.
Agenda item number 2 is notices of motion. I believe there are no notices of motion for tonight's meeting.
We have no notices of motion, Mayor.
Deferred business. Is there any deferred business for tonight's council meeting?
There is no deferred business, Mayor.
Agenda item number 4 is councillor and delegate reports. And councillors, you will recall, we have previously resolved to submit our reports in written format for inclusion in the minutes for this evening's meeting. So if we're happy to proceed with that. Very good. Agenda item number 5 is officer reports. And the first report is item 5.1.1, which is planning permit application 5/2022-4981, 105 Mathiesons Road, Eagle Point. I'll just note that Councillor Buckley has left the meeting and Councillor Urey is now doing the same, as they've previously declared a conflict in this item. And we'll go to Manager for Place and Community, Mr Stuart McConnell. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report seeking approval for use of accommodation, function and events centre, car parking dispensation and liquor licence at 105 Mathiesons Road, Eagle Point. Some of the points for consideration by council include, so the application has been made subject to notice and there were 8 objections, but also 2 letters of support were received in response to that notice. In response to the objector concerns regarding particularly the potential amenity impacts, a business management plan has been provided. Provide further details of the operation of the use and limitations on the number of events and hours of operation, hours of music and so on. A traffic impact assessment has also been undertaken and concludes that the capacity and safety of Mathiesons Road and the Mathiesons Road Painesville Road intersection will not be compromised by the proposed use, and in particular it's worth noting that the Department of Transport, who's responsible for referral in relation to these traffic matters, has no objection to the proposal from a traffic point of view. Parking can be provided on site to meet the requirements of the planning scheme, and while there may be some potential impacts on residential amenity, the officer's assessment is that these impacts can be minimised through the prudent management of the property in accordance with the business management plan and the other conditions of approval which are recommended in the report before you. So on that basis, the officer's recommendation is to issue a notice of decision for approval of the planning permit. And with me tonight to assist with any questions is Martin Richardson, the Manager of Planning. And so, councillors, before you is the report for your consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr McConnell. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Stowe.
Thank you. Martin, could I ask you, is this an appropriate development in the residential estate?
Councillor, the report, thanks for the question, and through you, Mayor, the report goes at some length in terms of assessing the application against the requirements of the planning scheme, which refer in many cases to residential amenity, traffic, noise, etc. And there's a quite detailed assessment within the report of that. So yes, the conclusion that we have arrived at is that the development in this instance is appropriate in this location.
Yeah. And one other question, if I may. You mentioned the business plan before. Is that enforceable, and if so, for how long?
Thanks, Councillor. Through you, Mayor. So a condition is recommended on the permit, which provides for the business management plan to be referenced in the permit. I'm just going to check which one it is for you. So condition 1A of the proposed condition of the planning permit would say the revised business management plan is to indicate following further details. We've asked for some additional details in relation to toilets and dealing with visitors when there are natural hazards and particularly days of extreme or catastrophic fire danger. So that condition will, if the development is approved, that condition will become part of the permit, referring to the business management plan, and is thus enforceable in perpetuity. As long as the activity is continued, the condition is enforceable. I do note that some objectors raised questions about what happens if the property is sold and moves on to another owner. Planning permits run with the land, not the owner, so any subsequent owner would also be responsible for compliance with that permit condition.
Councillor Allen, I believe you have a question.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Martin, I noticed that there's a condition that all music noise has to cease at 10 p.m. Is that consistent with residential in the wider community or different?
Thanks, Councillor, and through you, Mayor, yes. So the applicant has actually offered that in the business management plan. The EPA requirements for noise from music in residential areas actually run 10 p.m. Sunday to Thursday and 11 p.m. Friday to Saturday, but in this case we've stayed with the 10 p.m. proposal on the basis that we believe, if an event is on at night and it has live music, the liquor licence runs to 11, we would expect it's appropriate that the live music would stop at 10, people have their last drink, leave at 11. If the music goes to 11 on a Saturday night, it's going to be hard to get rid of people at 11 o'clock, so we felt that the 10 o'clock proposal was quite reasonable. Yep.
Councillors, are there further questions? Councillor Greason.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Martin. The intersection with Haynesville Road is very awkward, and the traffic is permitted to go up to 80 kilometres per hour. I understand that Transport have said that it's okay. Will Council monitor that intersection for some time, do you think?
Thank you, Councillor Greason. Through you, Mayor. So yes, the applicant was asked to provide further details. So Department of Transport came back to us and said we'd like to see some further analysis of the intersection. The traffic consultants on behalf of the applicant provided that. They did traffic counts and they did various technical studies in relation to what they call saturation at an intersection, that is the amount of vehicles that the intersection can cope with, and also looked at sight distances, etc. Having been provided with that further information, the Department of Transport reconfirmed that they had no objection to the application. In relation to the monitoring of the traffic, it's a state road, and so the council has no role in terms of monitoring the performance of an intersection on a state road. That's DOT's responsibility. But essentially it comes back to the fact that the department is content with the traffic report and its analysis of the potential traffic implications.
And one other question.
Please do, but I'd like you to turn your microphone on if you don't mind.
Good idea, thank you. The conditions intend to restrict the number of events that can be held, depending on different numbers of participants. Is it reasonable to assume that the events are a daily event only, not more than a single day?
Thanks, Councillor, and thanks for raising the question earlier today and allowing us to turn our minds to it. My interpretation, and it may be subject to interpretation, is that if there was a proposal for a 3-day event, I would count that as 3 events. I don't know, but I consider it unlikely that people will be invited to be on the property 24/7 for 3 days. They'd probably be leaving and coming back. Let's say it was some sort of arts event or whatever it might be. But my interpretation would be that we would count that as 3 daily events.
Thank you.
Councillor Greason. Councillor White.
Thank you. My questions are relating to the intersection on the Bairnsdale Road. If there's an event there that's, say, got you 100 or so people and they're all kicked out at 11 o'clock, that just means that probably 40 or 50 cars all hit the intersection at the same time. And my question is, has that been considered in the traffic impact statement? Because, if it was just people coming and going from their houses, it would be intermittent all day, but this would be just a surge of vehicles at that intersection all at the same time.
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mayor. So the traffic impact assessment actually does specifically refer to that, and it makes commentary that it is likely that vehicles will arrive at around the same time and depart at the same time. But the context there is the number of vehicles. So Mathiesons Road currently carries about 120 vehicles a day, and that's standard. There's sort of 6 to 8 vehicles per property. And the assessment of this application and the planning scheme requirements for parking consider that for a place of assembly or a function centre, it's 1 vehicle per 3 people. Obviously, often with these sorts of operations, people are arriving in. There's not just 1 person per car. It's shared. And also bear in mind that there will be times when the applicant has said that there will be a sort of valet bus service. But if you work on the basis of 30, let's say even 40 vehicles, then obviously they're not going to leave at exactly the same minute because they'll need to depart the property. But fundamentally, the issue of the safety of the intersection comes down to sight distance and traffic volumes on Bairnsdale Road. So for 30 or 40 vehicles to leave the site in the space of 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it might be, it fundamentally comes down to when you get to the intersection, what are the sight distances, what are the speeds of the vehicles on Bairnsdale Road and what are the traffic volumes? And the Department of Transport has looked at that assessment and considered that the intersection is still going to operate within safe capacity limits with that kind of traffic volume.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Martin. Councillor, is there any further questions of officers? No, I see none. We do have a recommendation in the report. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Allen, thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Greason. Councillor Allen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, I've been through this a number of times, and I think that the officers' recommendations and conditions that they've put on there are quite reasonable and appropriate in the circumstances. And I believe that this is something that's needed within the area, where we have very few places there you can have classy events, and I think this will be very much valued.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Greason, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. This isn't a straightforward application. This is a quiet, low-density residential zone, but I think that the conditions are adequate so long as we can monitor them and ensure that they are complied with. After all, they meet EPA requirements and noise guidelines, etc. So, and it's also important to know that to be reminded that these conditions apply regardless of who is operating or managing the venue. So I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greason. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Councillor White.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm going to oppose this proposal simply because, and it was spoken about just a minute ago about how quiet that Mathiesons Road area is, and I believe it's probably one of the sleepiest streets in Eagle Point, and it has beautiful outlooks there. And my thoughts on this are that the people who live nearby will be impacted not only in a sort of mental capacity in terms of whether the music's too loud or the chatter of people is too much to bear deep into the night. I also think that it may very well have an impact on the value of their property, so I can't support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Kirsten.
I'm going to have to agree with Councillor White. I was kind of coming here today with an open mind. I feel very hypocritical. I did inquire about the venue for my wedding a year and a half ago, so it's quite hypocritical of me, really. But I just couldn't imagine if I bought a property in that street, which is beautiful and quiet, to have this near me. Noise travels. I hear music when it's at the other end of my street. I wouldn't want to be a neighbour. So for me, I don't think it's the most suitable location. And I also think if we have objectors, then, you know, sometimes there should be some councillors who stand with them and recognise that it's really going to change their living conditions. So I have no points because I was going to come here with an open mind, but I don't think I agree.
Thank you, Councillor Van Dickel. Councillors, would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? I see none, in which case I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And those against? I believe the motion is carried. Thank you, everybody. Now we move on to agenda item. Yes, we'll just get the councillors back, and we think we might have a few people leave, so we'll just give you an opportunity to do that. Thanks for your attendance this evening. Thank you. Have a pleasant evening. Okay, thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to agenda item 5.2.1, which is the East Gippsland Shire Road Safety Strategy, and we'll go to our General Manager for Assets and Environment, Mr. Wayne Richards. Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report seeking adoption of the draft East Gippsland Shire Road Safety Strategy. The purpose of the Road Safety Strategy is to provide a framework for Council to promote road safety, best practice and safe systems. In providing this framework, the draft strategy is complementary to Council's Road Management Plan 2021, which sets out the policies, service delivery and specific actions. This strategy has been in the work for some time. It's undergone extensive community engagement, in particular with the Community Road Safety Strategy. With the Community Road Safety Committee. So with that, I'm pleased to present this draft strategy for you to you for adoption. Happy to take
Thank you,
questions.
Mr. Richards. Councillors, are there any questions? We've had some statements previously. Councillor Stowe, no? Very good. Points have been made. Councillor Buckley.
Look, just an off-the-cuff question. As part of our strategy for road safety, adopting appropriate road signage, because there are many named places, especially on places like the Great Alpine Road, where signage has not been put back up, and historical, named places have starting to be forgotten. And it's very important, if you're travelling on those sorts of roads, if an accident or something happens, that people can, say, well, it's near, haunted stream or somewhere like that, so that they can be easily identified. But is that part of our strategy to make sure that our signs are all well posted and maintained?
Thank you, Councillor Buckley, and through you, Mayor. So, Councillor Buckley, the short answer to that question is yes. But as far as the road safety strategy direction goes, it provides a range of options for the improvement of road safety, which includes measures that improve the clarity around driving, those sorts of things. So I was just looking for the specific reference, but the short answer is yes. Improved road safety includes improved road signage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Richards. Councillors, are there any further questions of officers? Councillor Van Diegle.
Reading the strategy, it's very broad. Is there anything that's going to show us what specific, we get even just Chillers Road before is a specific example of a road that's deemed unsafe by community. So when I read it, it's great, but it's very, very, very broad. So how are we actually going to action it so it's not just something that sits on the shelf?
Thank you for the question. The answer to that is that yes, it provides a strategic framework, but I guess what it does is it also directs us back to that Council's Road Management Plan 2021, which provides those specific actions.
If I may just add to Mr Richards, the strategy is also complemented by a 4-year action plan, which will take it down into the level of detail where it can provide that guidance. But as Mr Richards has also said, it's very closely aligned to our road management plan and our road maintenance plan. So yes, it is a very high-level strategy, but it does have an action plan that sits below it, which is an operational plan.
Councillor Uri.
Thank you. I note that this strategy was commenced quite a long time ago, and some of the data is quite old, even though the strategy is 2024 to 2029. Is there going to be any capacity for updating that data, or do we indeed collect the data, and can it go into a refreshed strategy at some point? Would that bring it more up to date?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Uri, and through you, Mayor. Yes, Council does continually collect data from a range of sources, so I guess we're continually updating our internal systems. As far as an actual review of the data that goes into the strategy, that's not planned yet, but it may be something that we consider.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillors, are there any further questions? Councillor Greason.
I just wish to ask the question on behalf of Councillor Stowe. And I recognise this is age groups, and I recognise that what you're doing is with the category of 70 plus, which isn't broken down into the 5-year groupings, unlike the rest of, the 0 to 4, and I would hate to see them driving, but I recognise that the reason for the reason for this is that it's comparative data, so it's comparing it with the rest of the state, and that's fine. But it would be useful to have a look at that breakdown, because I know Vic Road starts to become very, pesky about people as they get older and older, and it would be, I think, would be a valuable contribution to this.
Sorry, Councillor Stowe, you have something to add?
Yes, I wasn't going to ask, but I'd like to support Councillor Grecian, of course, for her excellent insight there. And I note that the most dangerous group of people on the road are the 39 to 50-year-olds. Are we planning to target them with testing of their licence on an annual basis? Would we advocate for that, do you think?
We might take that as a comment. I don't believe it's reflected in the strategy. Mr Richards, I'm happy for you to answer if you'd like to. Councillor Greason's question is also there.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Councillor Greason. The data that's coming in is from second-hand data, and I guess through discussions we've been looking for, and based on some discussions, we've been looking for a further breakdown of that data. There will be, if we can obtain that data happy to bring that up through Councillor newsletter or something along those lines.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Richards. Councillor Buckley and then Councillor Allen.
Yes, look, I just have another question in regards to some of the information in regards to the motorcycle accidents and the hotspot that we have around Omeo. This is a great concern for the Omeo district, and the safety issues around the great Alpine Road. And I'm just wondering, this actual strategy, will this be used as a segue into being able to advocate to state government to ensure that this particular road gets the necessary upgrade that it needs? I know there's already been work done, but there's still a lot more to go.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley, and through you, Mayor. Yes, the strategy will be able to be used for advocacy for various priorities. I guess a key part is also working through a Community Road Safety Committee and identifying specific challenges or specific risks on our roads, and working from a community advocacy perspective from that direction. Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Allen.
Wayne, looking at the fatals and injury graph, that's across all roads, isn't it? It's not specifically council roads. That's the first part of the question.
That is my understanding, Councillor Allen.
Yeah, and there's a stretch of road east of Swan Reach to Clem the West that is notorious for fatalities and serious crashes. The strategy there is more signs, 60k, etc., etc. And I noted when I was going to Mallacoota on Saturday, on the east side of Mount Drummer, there is a extensive passing lane for traffic going east and west that was put in for road safety, but because of the condition of the pavement, it's 60 k's and no overtaking. So, as part of this strategy, does that enable us as a Shire to put pressure on Vic Roads to meet their obligations?
Thank you, Councillor Allen, and through you, Mayor. Again, yes. Part of the purpose of this document is to be able to provide an advocacy on a range of issues that Council, the Community Road Safety Committee see as priorities.
Councillor Uri, you were about to go then. Please do.
If there are no further questions, I'd like to move the motion, Mr Mayor, please.
Thank you very much. And do we have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Stowe. Councillor Uri, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, please. There have been a lot of questions about how this strategy will help. I'm not sure either. Perhaps it's more through the action plan, but I strongly support it. I particularly support the goal to align with the state target to have road deaths and reduce serious injuries by 2030. 260 people seriously injured and 30 people killed on roads in East Gippsland is way too many. So we need to do whatever we can. As pointed out in this strategy, driver error is often a factor in serious road crashes. So we need to keep talking about it, I think. And I think this strategy will at least give us a focus for some good media messages. I also particularly support the active transport, which is mentioned in this strategy as well. So I'm sure other councillors will support the strategy. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Uri. Councillor Stowe.
Yes, it does identify the hotspots and the places to be aware of. I also note in the report that many of these hotspots are not our roads. They're actually, what was LCRB, Rural Roads Victoria. But it perhaps gives us a chance to advocate to them to fix up some of those roads. I note the ones that Councillor Buckley is particularly concerned about. Many of those, that Great Omeo Highway and the Hotham Road, firstly, they're Rural Roads Victoria, and secondly, they're hotspots for motorbikes. And I was one of these people myself that sometimes went slightly over the speed limit, and many of them do, and they suffer the consequences. So this report will highlight a lot of that.
Thank you, Councillor Stowe. Councillor Buckley, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Buckley, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would, Mayor. Just from a rural council's perspective, you know, it's been made very that rural roads in general have the highest fatalities. And I think a lot of that is because we're not getting funded adequately by the state and federal government. So I'm hoping that the Roads to Recovery will be able to address some of these issues that we're having. They're very important ones. So I fully support this step to be able to put some guidelines about how we operate into the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Buckley, I can see your hand is still up. That's a legacy hand, is it? Yep, very good. No one else would like to speak for or against the motion. I'm happy to put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to 5.2.2, which is Con 2024-1661. And thank you, Sarah. Note that you're now leaving the room as you have a declared conflict in this item. Construction of Bairnsdale recycling shed. And we'll go back to you, Mr Richards, as the General Manager acting for Assets and Environment. Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report seeking to accept the tender for a shed construction as a component of a broader resource recovery centre. It's one component of the broader project, noting that there's a civil works item listed as a separate item following this report. Broadly, the Resource Recovery Centre will enable significant increase in the number of waste streams collected on site for recycling. It'll also increase the volume of waste streams that can be accepted. Funding has been received from the Victorian Government Regional Recycle Fund. The remainder funding will come from the Bushfire Waste Reserve. There's a tender evaluation report and recommendation provided for your consideration. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Richards. Councillor Stowe.
Well, I note the amount of the tender, and it is a significant amount of money, and perhaps eye-watering even. Could you just outline what we get for our money? It's not just a shed, is it?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Stowe. The answer to that is is no. It's a significant shed. It's a 25 by 30 metre shed with the concrete slab and obviously the structural integrity to be able to provide to house this service long term. So while it says shed, it's much more significant than just a single shed.
And it is just a shed. There's no equipment attached to that tender.
The answer to that is no. This is for the construction of the shed. There are other components to this project which are considered under separate. So obviously the civil works item comes after this. The equipment will be purchased after the shed is constructed. Thank you.
Councillor Buckley.
Yeah, thank you. In our procurement policies, do we have any provisions to request or source alternative types of products? Because we know that concrete and steel are incredibly expensive, and there are other products such as hempcrete and other things that perhaps we could have used as a different material option. Yeah, I think the amount that I'm looking at here is just, as Councillor Stowe said, eye-watering. So can you just, provide some information around, do we ever ask our, or when we're doing our procurement policy, do we look into alternative materials?
I'm happy to answer this one, Mayor.
Certainly.
In wearing my substantive hat. Councillor Buckley, thank you for the question, great question. And certainly when we're looking at the cost of materials, and as councillors would recall, over the last few years during the COVID period, there was massive escalation costs in some of the construction material costs, particularly in steel componentry which went up in that first 18 months about 30%, so incredibly high costs. So our procurement policy does call on us to look at other materials where they're appropriate, also from a resource recovery and trying to use renewable resources wherever we can. So certainly I'm moving that way and trying to trial new materials where we can. Councillor Buckley, hemp, concrete, other materials instead of steel and where we can. So as part of the design of this shed, all of those options were looked at. But as Mr Richards said, it's a very big shed for its structural integrity, because it also takes a lot of heavy equipment moving through it in terms of a lot of trucks. At this point in time, we've gone with a more standard design. But I wholeheartedly agree with you, Councillor, that where we can, we should be looking at alternate materials. Thank you.
Councillor Greason.
Thank you, Wayne. Back to the budget again. Can you, there's a table there under the total budget available being $2,801,500. In that table, it says the contract budget. The total cost of contract is $1,299,000.
Sorry, Councillor, that might actually be confidential information that we might need to discuss in camera.
Thank you.
If you want to go into that level of detail.
So you're correct. I apologise. I retract.
Perhaps we could explain a little more about the budget.
Thank you.
Because the budget is published. So the budget, the overall project budget is published. So it is publicly available information. And there is a budget of $2.8 million for this entire project, which consists of this contract, the contract that Mr Richards has just referred to, which will be considered later by councillors. It also considers equipment that we need to undertake this sorting, and it also included the planning and design work. So this is a significant budget, but not all of it goes into
building the shed.
And if I can just also draw councillors' attention to the opportunity cost of not having a sorting facility, which is more of our waste going into landfill, and a landfill cell costs approximately $4 million to construct.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Uri.
Thank you. It is a big investment in our resource and recovery centre, no doubt about that. I was wondering if we could hear a little bit more about what this will enable us to do. What sort of products will we be saving from landfill if this shed goes ahead?
Thank you, Councillor Uri. So I guess the project brief around this one was around convenient disposal of paper, cardboard, plastics and mixed recycling. The collection of a number of non-priority streams will also be increased through this project, so tyres, scrap metal, batteries, paint, motor oil, polystyrene and mattresses. So a really wide range of materials that can come in and be recycled.
I have a question also about the tip shop, and it's an important social enterprise, but I'm not sure whether it relates more to this contract or to the following one with the civil works. So maybe I'll ask it later on, because I think part of it is the way the traffic flows around that area. I'd like to be a bit clearer about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Uri. Councillor White, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. The question's around specifically which trucks would be delivering to this site, in that Tambo Waste have already substantially upgraded their facility to sort the waste that comes in from their trucks, which is mostly household waste. So I'm just wondering, are we doubling up on something, or are we now selecting a different group of tip users to be directed to this sorting facility?
Thank you, Councillor White. So my understanding is obviously general public coming in, but also there's a range of businesses and contractors, etc., that also bring their waste to our site. So this provides the opportunity for those other than Tambo Waste.
Good, John.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Van Diggle.
We obviously have fees when people drop stuff off, so is eventually, in a way, it's going to pay itself off. You know, you're saying if a cell is $4 million to construct, obviously we might not make the money back, but will we make some money back through this process?
Thank you, Councillor Van Diggle. And I guess as reiterating what the acting CEO said before, is that the intent is to divert a significant amount of waste from landfill, which over time will save on future construction costs. So yet I'm not aware of the lifetime payment, but it will divert a significant amount of waste away from those cells.
If I could just add to that as well, yes, some of the waste streams do come with a fee. We try to not charge for recyclables to encourage people to use them, but we look for sources where we can sell them. So I think councillors will see, we sell scrap metal that comes through a recycling centre like this. We've just found someone to take a whole lot of our cloths and textiles. So tyres and rubber is used and on sold. So whilst we don't charge the public often to bring their recycling in, we then find an income source when we on-sell it for reuse.
Okay, perfect, yeah.
Very good. Councillors, are there any further questions? I see none, in which case there is an officer recommendation in the report. Do I have a mover? Councillor Stowe, thank you, and Councillor White as a seconder. Councillor Stowe, could you please complete the blanks? Team effort. I'll just ask you to turn your microphone on there, Councillor Stowe, if you don't mind.
Sorry. That the tender submitted by Wellcom Proprietary Limited, ATF Wheel and Family Trust for CON 2024161, construction of Bairnsdale Recycling Centre shed for the tender lump sum price of $844,153, excluding GST, as provided in Appendix 1. Be accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Stowe. And can you confirm that the information on the screen is correct and the same as that which you have just asked us to fill?
Yes, except better English.
Thank you. And Councillor White, you have seconded that motion. Councillor Stowe, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, but thank you.
Councillor White, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, I think any way we can stop products going to landfill and getting some further use out of them by recycling is a great outcome. I hope that this encourages people to use that facility. I personally myself have now started to, because we just have a rural pickup, have started to sort the bottles and cans and give them to the kids down the road that they can trade them in. So, we're all doing our little bit, and I hope that this really encourages people to use the facility and save our landfill.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? In which case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Agenda item 5.2.3. Con 2024-1638 Bairnsdale Recycling Centre Civil Works. And Mr Richards, I believe this is with you as well.
Thank you, Mayor. So councillors, before you is a report to seek to accept the tender for the civil works component of the Resource Recovery Centre. As is evident, it's a similar report to the previous report, noting that this is for the civil component only. So that includes construction of roads, widening of existing roads to accommodate the facility. The tender evaluation report has been provided, and a recommendation is also before you for your consideration. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr Richards. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Uri.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr Richards, so as we know, the tip shop operates from this same area. I'm keen to understand what consultations have taken place with regards to the siting of this shed, how will it fit with the work that they do, and perhaps a reassurance that Council continues to support that important social enterprise and it won't be adversely affected by this, by the civil works or the shed, please.
Thank you, Councillor Uri, and through you, Mayor. The last question first. The intent is certainly for this facility to complement the tip shop. So from the design, yes, customers or people entering the landfill site will go past the tip shop first, the intent being that that's where they can provide useful goods that are available. It then progresses on to the recycling centre. As far as consultation, I know that there has been conversations with the tip shop manager, and my understanding is that that they're supportive of the construction of this facility. Thank you.
Are there further questions, councillors? No, there is an officer recommendation in the report. Do I have a mover? Councillor Greason, Councillor White, I think you might have been in there first. Councillor Greason, you can second that one. Councillor White, could you confirm, could you please complete the blanks, I think is what I need to say.
Yes. Point 2, accepts the tender submitted by Riley Earth Moving Proprietary Limited for the contract 2024 of 1638, construction of Bairnsdale Recycling Centre, civil works for the contract amount of $380,342.12 exclusive of GST.
Thank you, Councillor White. And can you confirm the information on the screen is correct?
Yes, going from the agenda, that is exactly right. Thank you.
Excellent. And would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. Thanks. Just pretty much to say that Riley's obviously they're very experienced local contractors, and of all places to be very familiar with, they are familiar with the landfill site. So I think it would be in good hands. The only thing that they could possibly be a downside to Riley's for this is that they may not get to build another pit for a while. I hope that's the outcome. So they'll do the civil works, but we can hold off digging another big $4 million hole in the ground for a while longer. So yeah, I'd recommend this to the group.
Thank you, Councillor White. And Councillor Greason, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? In which case I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on now to agenda item number 5.2.4, which is CON 2024-1621, maintenance and repair services for mobile plant. And Wayne, this is with you again. Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you, Mayor. So, councillors, before you was a report seeking to establish a schedule of rates contract to deliver repairs and servicing to council's mobile plant. This contract will replace the current contract that expires on 5th of April. It's for a period of 3 years with an extension option of 24 months at council's discretion. Anticipated expenditure for this contract is $185,000 per annum, but that's supported by repairs undertaken by our in-house mechanic. So the tender evaluation report and recommendations have been provided for your consideration. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr Richards. Councillors, are there any questions? There is an officer recommendation in a report. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Uri. Councillor Greason to second. Councillor Uri, could you please fill in the blanks?
Yes, that Council accepts the tender submitted by MWT Holdings Proprietary Limited, ATF Boss Discretionary Trust, trading as East Vic Hydraulics for contract 2024 1621, maintenance and repair services for mobile plant schedule of rates, excluding GST, for a 3-year term of contract as provided as Appendix 1 be accepted. Oh, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Ewing. Can you confirm that the information on the screen is correct?
NWT holding discretionary. Yes, correct. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much. And would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Councillor Greason, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? I'll take it from that the motion is not opposed, in which case I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? I believe that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Agenda item 5.2.5, which is Contract 2024-1535, sealed roads, major rehabilitation, capital works. Take it away, Mr Richards.
Thank you, Mayor. So, councillors, before you is a report seeking adoption of a panel contract to provide sealed road rehabilitation of various roads. As a panel contract, there's obviously multiple contractors. It's for a 3-year term with 2 12-month extension options. You'll see in the report, contractors are able to nominate over 4 regions, so submit different prices for different locations. Under this contract, at the point of engagement, contractors are selected based on price, availability and best value. So the tender evaluation report and recommendation has been provided for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Richards. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Buckley.
Oh, yes, thank you. My question is just around how the process is conducted to allow these contractors the position that they have to undertake the types of work that they do, and if there was other contractors that weren't familiar to our, or were new into the area, how does that process work?
Thank you, Councillor Buckley, and through you, Mayor. Recognising that Mr Richards is a little new to this area, I'm happy to answer. So, Councillor, this is a 3-year contract. So we would normally keep this panel of contractors for the next 3 years and then reopen the panel just as we have this time. If there was a significant change in the construction of in our contractor base, if we had a number of them that closed, or that there were obvious areas where our contractor panel couldn't meet our requirements, we can reopen the contract and the panel and call for new contractors during that period. When we do that, we also allow those that are on the panel to resubmit prices. So we really only do it where there's a real need. We do quite a bit of work with our contractors to make sure that they understand that these opportunities are coming up, including breakfasts for our contractors and going through our capital works budget and the like, to try and encourage as many of those to be on the panel as possible. So there are times where we have reopened our panels, but it's the exception rather than the norm. Thank you.
Councillors, are there any further questions of officers in relation to this matter? I see none. There is an officer recommendation in the report. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Greason. Could you please complete the blanks?
Could I please have confirmation that the list is correct on page 293 of 412? 292. Thank you. So the blanks, A is Highway Stabilisers Australia Proprietary Limited, then R&M Contracting, Gippsland Proprietary Limited, then Fowler's Asphalting Proprietary Limited, then Fulton Hogan Industries Proprietary Limited, then Orbost Civil and Civic Proprietary Limited, then Cranes Asphalting and Bitumen Sealing Proprietary Limited.
And can you confirm that the information on the screen is correct?
It's a different order, but R&M, or both. Yes, it is correct. Thank
They're
you.
all there? Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Greason. And councillors, do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Allen, thank you. Councillor Greason, would you like to speak to the motion? Sorry,
no.
councillors online, I didn't see you there. Councillor Allen, would you like to speak to the motion? Is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? In which case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is passed unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to agenda item 5.3.1, which is S11A, Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation under the Planning and Environment Act. And we'll go to Mr McConnell. No, we'll go to Sarah Johnston in Business Excellence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report titled Section 11A, Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation under the Planning and Environment Act 1987, seeking appointment of a new authorised officer under the Act. Typically, authorised officers are appointed by the Chief Executive Officer under a power of delegation. However, the Planning and Environment Act specifically requires a resolution of Council to do this. The Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation enables authorised officers to act on behalf of Council in certain circumstances. Staff are authorised under this Act to represent the Council in enforcing provisions of the Act. Neha Sharma has been appointed as a statutory planning officer and is required to be an authorised officer under the Planning and Environment Act 1987. Therefore, officers ask that in the exercise of the powers conferred under Section 1474 of the Planning and Environment Act, to have Neha Sharma be appointed as the authorised officer as set out in the Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation provided at Attachment 1 for the purposes of the Planning and Environment Act and the regulations made under the Act, and authorises the Acting Chief Executive Officer to execute the instrument provided at Attachment 1, and notes that the instrument will come into force immediately following resolution of Council and will remain in force until Council determines to vary or revoke it, or until the officer ceases to be employed by East Gippsland Shire Council.
Thank you, Ms Johnson. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Buckley.
Yes, I feel a bit childlike, but why is this different to other appointments that couldn't normally be done by the CEO? Just out of interest.
Thanks, Councillor Buckley. Really good question. So it's actually just part of the Act. The Act says that a council resolution must be done in order to appoint an authorised officer under this particular Act. So, yes, that's the answer.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any other questions? There is an officer recommendation in the report. Do I have a mover? Councillor Allen, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Uri, thank you. Councillor Allen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's just pretty procedural, so we'll leave it at that.
Councillor Uri. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? I see no one, in which case I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Agenda item 5.3.2 is the Municipal Association of Victoria Sub-Delegate nomination, Council Representation Register, and I believe Ms Johnson, this is with you.
Thank you, Mayor. So you've just named the title of the report before you. So the purpose of this report is to seek Council's endorsement for a substitute representative to the Municipal Association of Victoria. The MAV Rules of Association stipulates that a participating member council must appoint one of its councillors as a delegate and one of its councillors as a substitute delegate. Council has not previously appointed a substitute delegate or representative for MAV. Councillor Cook is the current MAV representative. So the officer recommendation is that Council obviously receives and notes this report and considers a substitute representative as for the Municipal Association of Victoria.
Thank you, Ms Johnson. Councillor Buckley, you have a question.
I might have jumped the gun. I just wanted to nominate Councillor White.
Thank you, and you have jumped the gun. Councillors, are there any other questions? No, in which case we'll tender that suggestion now, and I know that Councillor Reeves has also expressed an interest in the position. So, Councillor Greason?
I'll support Sonia Buckley's nomination. I think Councillor White indicated his interest before Councillor Reeves did.
Understood. Councillors, any further thoughts? No? In which case, I think we will allow Councillor White's nomination. And we'll just check with you, Councillor White, that you accept that nomination before we go any further.
I do accept it, but I think somebody's having trouble spelling my name. It's J-O-H-N. There we go.
May I just say a few words of the reason why I've nominated Councillor White? Is that appropriate?
What I might do is ask if anyone would like to move the motion. Councillor Buckley, you can now speak to the motion.
Yes, thank you. I believe John is a great councillor, someone that has put years of his life, dedicated years of his life to his position. He's got a lot of experience. I think he'd be a really good substitute representative for our region, knowing the people well and representing them well. So I asked the other councillors that they would consider him as the appropriate person and fully support him. And it's been a pleasure to work with Councillor White over the last few years. So I hope that he will go down to the big smoke if needed and advocate on our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Greason, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I won't add to that, but I think Councillor White would be a very good substitute for yourself. Thank you. When required. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Okay. In which case, I will put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is passed unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Congratulations, John. Agenda item 5.
Thank you.
Very good. 5.3.4 is the... Sorry, 5.3.3 is the Municipal Association of Victoria May 2024 State Council meeting motions. And Ms Johnson will talk through this one.
Thank you, Mayor. The MAV State Council meeting will be held on the 17th of May 2024. Council has identified 6 issues for consideration for submission as potential motions for the State Council meeting that are consistent with the MAV strategy and the priority themes that are identified in that strategy, which spans across 2021 to 2025. The proposed motion, which are contained within the reports, are: number 1, telecommunications infrastructure and connectivity resilience; number 2, review the unintended consequences of the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act, otherwise known as the EPBC Act, on the management of key infrastructure and community services; number 3, housing affordability and funding; number 4, local government consultation, Local Government Act 2020 reform; number 5, financial sustainability; and number 6, renewable electronic vehicle charges in schools. As I mentioned, the motions are detailed in attachments 1 to 6 to the report, and I will, if these motions are approved, they will be provided for submission.
Thank you, Ms Johnson. Councillors, are there any questions? I see none. There is an officer recommendation in the report along with the motions. Councillor Buckley, you've frozen, so we'll just wait for you to come back with us, and there you are. Would anybody like to move the motion? Thank you, Councillor Uri. And a seconder, Councillor Van Diggle. Thanks very much. And Councillor Uri, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, Mayor. Anybody looking from the outside at our meeting might think that we've just come up with these by some fluke or something, but I'd like to assure people that these are the result of quite a good lot of consideration. There are a lot of things that we feel that we could be advocating for at state and federal level, and these are the ones we came up with, and even though there seem to be quite a lot of them, we couldn't sort of cross any of them out because they're all particularly relevant to East Gippsland. So I thank the officers very much for their work in writing these up, and I think it will probably be you, Mr Mayor, who will be speaking to these if need be when the time comes, but I'm glad that we're so active in this advocacy space, and I recommend the motion to my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Uri. Councillor Van Diggle, would you like to speak to the motion? No? Is the motion opposed? Councillors, would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Buckley.
Look, I'll speak for the motion, just with one concern about one of the issues that have been put forward, because as a councillor group we have to support, you know, the broad perspective of the whole council group, but sometimes we don't agree with everything, and I'm yet to be convinced about the electric vehicle success in our overall economy at this time. So that's one part of the MAV motions that I'm not necessarily, I wanted to make it open to the public, that I'm not necessarily in support of, but the rest I can wholeheartedly support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? No? In which case I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And again, that is passed unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Agenda item 5.3.4 is the Australian Local Government Association National General Assembly 2024 notices of motion. Ms Johnson, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So before you've got a report about the 2024 National General Assembly of the Australian Local Government Association. So in a very similar vein to what we talked about from a MAV perspective, this is a National Assembly conversation. And as Councillor Uri quite put very well as well, the considerations for motions for this particular one have had a lot of thought and input in across our broader business and community. So the National General Assembly will be conducted from the 2nd to the 4th of July in Canberra. The theme is Building Community Trust, which aims to explore the critical importance of trust in government, between governments, its institutions and its citizens, and is a fundamental building block for the nation's democracy. The 2024 motions are focused on the 12 priority areas being intergovernmental relations, financial sustainability, roads and infrastructure, emergency management, housing and homelessness, jobs and skills, community services, closing the gap in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander reconciliation, data, digital technology and cyber security, climate change and renewable energy, environment and circular economy, which is quite a list. It is proposed that Council submit 2 motions to be considered for inclusion in the agenda. Number 1, increase the resilience of telecommunications infrastructure during disasters, improve the quality and extent of coverage to support regional living, provide equitable access to services and digital technologies. And 2, accelerate investment in disaster risk reduction. The motions are detailed in attachments 1 and 2 to the report, and if they are approved, these motions will proceed to submission. As you are quite aware, those 2 particular themes have been very prevalent in recent times across our community, which is why they've been selected to be put forward.
Thank you, Ms Johnson. Councillors, are there any questions? There is a recommendation in the report. Would anybody like to move the motion? Councillor Greason. And a seconder, please. Councillor White. Councillor Greason, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. These 2 motions are very important, and I'm sure that East Gippsland won't be the only council wanting to support them, and we have discussed them at length and repeatedly. So I really don't think there needs to be much more discussion about them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greason. Councillor White.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to inform those who may be listening, and of course the rest of the council group, motion 1 today I received an email from the MAV, Emergency Management Committee, of which I'm on, and they have virtually word for worded motion 1. So there's obviously more people out there, including Mav, that want to take that forward. So we've got support on a bigger basis than just East Gippsland, which is pretty obvious that would be the case considering the conditions that we've endured recently. So wholeheartedly support that.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Then I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Agenda item number 6 is urgent business. I don't believe we have any. Thank you, Acting CEO. Agenda item 7 is confidential business. I do need a motion to move us into camera. Thank you, Councillor Allen. Seconded, Councillor Greason. Is the motion opposed? Would anybody like to speak for or against the motion? Put the motion to the vote. And that is passed. Thank you, councillors. Well, thank you, everybody. That brings us to the conclusion of the East Gippsland Shire Council meeting for this evening. Thank you for your attendance and participation. We will see you later, and travel safe.